Trump has been criticized for racial insensitivity. He launched his campaign in June of 2015 by bashing Mexican immigrants.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
He questioned a judge's ability to rule fairly in a Trump University lawsuit because he was Mexican-American.
We're building a wall. He's a Mexican.
And he has repeatedly slammed mostly black NFL athletes protesting racial inequality.
When somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Jews will not replace us!
But it was his response to violence in Charlottesville, Virginia last summer that drew the ire of people in both parties when he equated neo-Nazis and white nationalists protesting the removal of a Confederate statue with activists demonstrating against them and the ideas they represent.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
He revised those remarks 2 days later.
Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans.
But then said,
you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Today's event is an opportunity to answer some of his critics.
I've talked to him already. Thanks. Yes, President Trump is going to be arriving here shortly, and he is going to be skipping the fanfare outside the museum, the longer program set up outside of this museum. Instead, he's going to be touring the interior of the Civil Rights Museum, giving remarks to a smaller group gathered indoors, civil rights activists, museum patrons, and other elected officials. And so in that sense, he'll be avoiding potentially being involved in this larger program and the potential protests that he might see. Diane?
All right, Athena. Yeah, beyond the president's controversy surrounding his presence there, big, important day. Thank you.
Well, as you've heard, the prominent black leaders are protesting President Trump's visit. Many are looking to the president's remarks about African Americans and to African Americans as a reason for shunning him or boycotting this event. Here are some of the president's comments. These are his words. Watch and listen.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either.
Congressman John Lewis should spend more time on fixing and helping his district, which is in horrible shape and falling apart. All talk, 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 no action or results. Sad.
You're living in poverty. Your schools are no good. You have no jobs. 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose? Look at my African American over here. Look at him. Are you the greatest? You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. Knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously.
He was so obnoxious and so loud. He was screaming. And they did, I don't know, rough up. Maybe he should have been roughed up, because it was absolutely disgusting what he was doing.
Will you unequivocally condemn David Duke and say that you don't want his vote or that of other white supremacists in this election?
Well, just so you understand, I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy.
Well, you've got David Duke just joined, a bigot, a racist, a problem. I mean, this is not exactly the people you want in your party.
The state of Hawaii says this is official. He was born in Hawaii on this date. Here it is. Why do you deny that?
A lot of people do not think it was an authentic certificate.
Donald, you're beginning to sound a little ridiculous. I have to tell you.
You are. Well,
he insisted to CNN that the so-called Central Park Five were still indeed guilty. At the time, Trump took out full-page ads in newspapers calling for New York to reinstate the death penalty.
If the woman died, I think they should be executed.
President Trump tweeted, sadly, because President Obama has done such a poor job as president, you won't see another black president for generations. A great African-American president has it exactly had a positive impact on the thugs who are so happily and openly destroying Baltimore? Listen, for the sake of time, we were unable to include all the president's comments on and to African Americans. We want to get to our conversation here. Van Jones, CNN political commentator, also the former special advisor to President Obama and the author of Beyond the Messy Truth, How We Came Apart, How We Come Together. Also, Bruce Lavelle, executive director of the National Diversity Coalition for Trump and a member of President Trump's 2020 advisory board. Gentlemen, good morning to both of you and welcome. Bruce, let me start with you, Bruce. Does anything you just watched for the 2.5 minutes there make you uncomfortable?
No, and thanks for having me, Van. You know, I wish I had 30 minutes to, go down line item that CNN so generously went out and just showed a certain side of the president that he's not. And it's interesting that we're going to, obviously, we see that we're going to try to go down the road and throw this racial, game on the president as we go into 2010, but it won't work. And, today should be honored as a historic day. Victor, you invited me on the show to talk about the historic grand opening of Mississippi Museum that's going to have, honor Medgar Evers, who was slain in 1963. His brother, Charles Eggers, and his Medgar Evers' wife is going to meet the president, and they're going to honor what happened to, her husband there, who Charles Eggers did endorse the president of the United States. Evers. And so, therefore, this is historic. Not only that, going down Interstate 55 and having this awesome museum for economic development as well as job growth and et cetera. Yeah. This is a great shot in the arm for economic development for Jackson, Mississippi, which had a 0.5 GDP rate. So this is historic. This is big to honor everything that's happened in Mississippi. Well,
let me get Van in this conversation. We've got just about 7 minutes together, but I want to bring Van in. Van, your reaction to what we just saw and your thoughts on these boycotts from Congressman Benny Thompson and from John Lewis and also from the mayor of Jackson, the NAACP.
Well, to be fair to President Trump, he's in a no-win situation. Had he been invited and refused to go, he would have come under criticism. At the same time, having been invited and then showing up, he's subjected to even worse criticism because it's easy to show up for a symbol of racial progress. It's hard to actually stand for the substance of racial progress. And President Trump has not only not been there on the substance, he's actually he's put the car in reverse in so many ways. The time for him to show his true leadership was when you had an American citizen murdered in the streets by Nazis who used ISIS tactics of driving a car into a crowd and murdered, frankly, a white activist who was opposing Nazis in America. That was the time to come forward and give a complete slam dunk, no holds barred defense of Americans from white terrorists. He failed to do that. He tried to equivocate. He went here, he went there. He actually wound up defending people who deserved no defense at all. And at that point, his credibility to speak to civil rights or to show up to those events went away. So the country is suffering in a situation where literally the President of the United States can't even go to a civil rights museum without offending the sensibilities of millions and millions of people.